There are a few big unsolved problems in computer science. Probably the most famous is P equals NP. Whether or not that's true, I think that one's easy because you can just set n equal to 1 and then clearly it's true. The other big question is Vim worth it to learn? This question I have a lot of problems with personally because my livelihood depends on Vim tutorials somewhat. Well, I went off the rails recently, but it used to depend on Vim tutorials. So I don't like when people ask that question because then maybe my viewers will flow away and everything will dry up like a phantom oasis. Mirage of an oasis, that's the word I was looking for. But yeah, I'm going to try to answer that today. I think, first of all, the term worth it is a little bit weird. It's like, to quantify things as being worth it, I guess you're asking, like, is it worth my time? If I put in this amount of time, am I going to get this thing out that improves my existence in some way? And I don't know, the problem with that, in my opinion, is it's like a dangerous, slippery slope where you start asking, you ask all these questions, like, is this worth it? Is this worth it? Is this worth it? I just want my time to be spent most efficiently, which is reasonable enough. Like, we're all obsessed with efficiency. But if you do that and you just go on YouTube and you find people's opinions about what's worth it all day, you can actually just waste a lot more time than you would have just starting learning the thing. Which is really funny as well for Vim. Like, people watching a video, is Vim worth it? I would say if you spend 20 minutes doing Vim tutor, you already have basically learned Vim. And it's like, if you're going to watch a 20-minute video about learning Vim or not, it's kind of ridiculous, honestly. And worth it it's a bad attitude because it just carries to a lot of other things in computer science. Like, you get a lot of people asking, is it worth it to learn React? Is it worth it to learn this and this and this? And then there's a whole culture of making videos about what's worth it and like what's the meta framework. Not meta the company and not meta like it's both server side and client side. I could have picked a better word, but what's the framework that's being hired? What's the framework where there are jobs? There's job demand. I don't know. You get what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I think it's just weird to ask, is it worth it all day? It creates this whole economy of worth it videos instead of actually just learning something. And then as soon as you actually know a technology, as soon as you learn Vim, you can tell for yourself whether or not it's worth it or whether or not other things are worth it. And that's a very important skill to have so you don't spend your entire day watching videos about it. For instance, like if you learn Vim really well, then you're qualified to say whether Helix or whether Emacs or whether Cocoon is worth it much better than someone who's coming from VS Code. Still probably not all that qualified, and I would just go and try it if you are interested and not like worry about, is it worth it? But yeah, the other side of the argument that I don't like is worth it kind of implies like you're exchanging your time, right, for a skill. But there are only so many activities you can do in life. And to split them into two very broad categories, there's like work, which is maybe like programming and studying and improving your abilities to churn out capitalist things that can be sold for money. And then there's like leisure, where you're just like wasting your time basically with useless human desires and like terrible family and friend connections and stuff like that. You know, that's like, it's a total waste of time, and eventually we'll have like behavioral therapy to correct for. But for now is like a big chunk of how a lot of people, including me, unfortunately, spend our time. And if you have like 8 hours of the day to learn for programming, and you're going to spend a chunk of that learning Vim, it's much different than like if your leisure activity is learning Vim, which it is for me, and it is for a lot of other people who like are Linux rising freaks, you know, or people who customize operating systems and dot files all day for fun. It's like the worth it question, I guess, applies most in like a corporate context where you're going to learn Vim like during the workday, and then after you get home to your like unoptimal wife and kids, you're going to stop like learning. But if Vim for you is fun, if that's like your pastime as opposed to watching movies or whatever other activity that's unoptimal, then it's just like such a useless moot question, because it's like it's not time that you would spend on anything else. I just don't get that exactly. Yeah. I was getting all existential and philosophical, and I stopped talking about Vim for a while, which I think is a big mistake. And the reason I stopped is I got freaked out by the idea of optimizing, meta optimizing. Like, you have a Vim config that you edit so you can edit code faster, and then you get so carried away. If your job as a YouTuber to talk about Vim, I'm incentivized to keep improving my Vim workflow, so it's like a workflow improving itself, which feels like, well, what's the point now, if I'm not really coding? First of all, I was coding, but second of all, that's kind of the nature of everything in life. Vim is a lot more like real life than you might think. What's an activity that I'm trying to think that just feeds into itself endlessly? Fashion is a great one, or clothing. Because I was with my mom and sister, and my sister loves to go to thrift shops, which is I'd literally rather die. But luckily I've found Zen, so I was a little more able to handle that. It was still really hard. But yeah, I was in this thrift shop, and I was so people go to thrift shops so that they can, or clothing dispensaries, clothing dealerships, whatever, so they can get clothes and slap them on so that they can do what? Go back out to more clothing stores? It's you're making your appearance better so that you can go appear more, but part of your appearances in public are at places where you're improving your appearance. It's like a self-cyclical, in the same way that you use Vim to code, but you also use Vim to edit your VimRC. It's an endless self-improvement loop, and the rest of life is like that too. It's you buy a new car. Why? So you can be more comfortable going to your job, so you can get more money, so you can buy a nicer car. It's just an endless treadmill of improvement, and that made me I was what's the point of it all? It's so it's just an endless loop. But you have to kind of enjoy the process and not any results. You can't have a gaining idea. According to Buddhism, you can't do things for the sake of getting something out of it, or else you're going to be kind of miserable. Life will have its ups and downs, but it's much more stable and much more tranquil to do things for their own sake rather than to do things to get something. And that's, I think, a problem with Vim and programming in general. Maybe I'll make a whole video on this eventually, but one thing that's a Buddhist idea is you shouldn't have thoughts in your mind of other things while you're doing an activity, which I absolutely agree with. If you're learning Vim and in your head it's all I'm doing this so I can be faster and better than other developers. I'm doing this so I have this supreme vision of me being really fast, really smooth. And then you have this mental ideal, this I guess it's an ideal is the best way to look at it, this mental picture of a supremely good and perfect scenario where you're just flowing through code and you know everything about Vim. The problem with having those gaining ideas, those ideas of perfection, and same thing with any other programming language. I'm going to learn Java, and I'm going to optimize all the garbage collection cycles, and I'm going to make the best app ever. You're starting out with the idea that you're going to be very successful is problematic because it kind of corrupts the practice of doing the thing for its own sake. And it makes it so that you'll constantly be kind of disappointed because your ideal will be really far from reality. It's hard to enjoy learning Vim when you're struggling and flopping all around and you're just slapping yourself from file to file, from buffer to buffer, super awkwardly, like a fish that's dead on land or flopping around on land. It's still alive. And you'll be really disappointed because you have this vision, that guy on YouTube, he was flying through stuff. And I'm not saying this is vacuously true. I found it very true for me. Or when I start a project, I have visions of oh my god, this project will be so successful. And I'm sure lots of people can relate to this. You imagine, this is going to be an open source triumph. I'm going to get so much career brownie points for doing this thing. I'm going to get so much cred for this. This project is going to be so intricate and well designed. And you have all these ideas about the project, and then inevitably when it takes you a long time to realize those things, Like, you can't just have this great open source project within like 2 hours of work. It's going to take you months of meticulous planning and like ups and downs and different amounts of productivity in different weeks. And it's like, realistically, that will never be the case that you'll be like, oh, I'm gonna be a Vim master, and then like a day later you're just a god. It's like a long, slow grind. So it's important to lose this idea of, is it worth it? Is this ideal that I have in my mind gonna be rendered and like, is this gonna become reality quickly enough for me to be satisfied with it? It's kind of a similar thing to, it's like asking if a diet is worth it, or if like working out, is calisthenics worth it? And you can see like guys that are super shredded and jacked from doing calisthenics. And it's like, yes, it's gonna take a lot of work though. It's kind of like, when you're watching a video, is Vim worth it? You're basically trying to comfort your brain into thinking, oh, this ideal that I have in my mind, being a super fast, godly programmer, it's going to be easy, or it's going to be hard and I shouldn't do it. You're waiting for someone else to tell you how long it's going to take and how hard it's going to be. And once you get that answer, you think you're going to make a decision one way or another. You're like, okay, I'm going to dismiss Vim outright, or okay, I'm going to go all in on Vim. But it's like this sneaky form of procrastination, I think, where you are just, instead of actually starting, you're just like trying to find patterns of other people doing things before to justify your own actions. I don't know. And it's like, I think it's an insidious form of procrastination because it feels like doing work. It feels like you're gaining information. But if you watch a video that's just, should you learn Zig? Should you do this? Should you do that? It's like, so, it's got very little substance actually that you can remember and take with you. And you often forget what the message was in the end, because so many of these people just have like, they kind of say, videos I've seen at least, of whether or not Vim is worth it, it's kind of like an opaque, up in the air answer. It's like, it's worth it in these cases if you want to do this, it's not worth it in this, and it's like, you often forget, and then you end up watching more of them, and it's like, if you had just done it in the beginning, it would have been really easy. But I don't know, maybe there is a reason for having videos so that you can decide what's worth it and what's not. It all depends on what you're trying to do, I guess, but for the most part, yeah. I guess there's no real thesis to this video. I didn't write a script, I'm too lazy.